more
Nobody that I
minutes
know
before we
of.
can legally start the meeting, so we're in a holding pattern.
Sure, yeah,
Then
no worries.
you're first on the agenda, so yeah, and you sound really loud. Does he sound really
I
loud?
never heard anything from him.
Yeah, you, I know. Although I think it's coming
I'll give you numbers.
good, that's a good thing. I don't know, well, it sounds loud to me, but.
Well, it's because you're used to Bert from last night. He is so soft-spoken
Oh, yeah.
when he wants.
Is Barry coming?
I don't know. I don't know.
I haven't seen any communication with Barry.
Me neither. Larry, you said you spoke to him on,
I ran into him, at the transfer station about a week and a half ago, or as far as I knew he was coming.
yeah.
Oh, there it is.
I will say Barry's has like about 8 additional meetings this week due to budget.
Oh,
And they have their board meetings.
Oh,
Yes.
well,
So I could see him just calling it a day.
okay.
There might actually be an activity tonight for BOS members, like a dinner or something.
What?
I think there's some kind of a town activity, like a dinner or something. Don, anytime you want to start.
Okay. Let's call the meeting to order. It's the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I will stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start off with roll call. Linda, would you start?
Linda Dennis?
Ken Dennis?
Don Shagan.
Gunter Hubert? Larry Schissel?
Okay, and the agenda review, anybody have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't mind making a statement about the agenda, or requesting the board we have so much on the agenda, I'd love to defer the treasurer's report till next month, and then I would like the top priority to review that warrant article, because we are basically behind a deadline. I have to have it by Monday to get presented. That would be if the board's willing. Obviously, after the presentation.
Okay. It's fine with me. Any objections to those changes?
Okay, I will make the treasurer's report a top priority for next month.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the minutes, are the minutes from December 2022. I did have a comment on them, and then there is on the 5th page, under Yeoman's property, I guess that's the 3rd paragraph down. The walkabout that we did at Yeoman's, and the boundary lines and the conservation tags, Larry Shizzle was present, so it should list Chairman Shagan, Mr. Huber, and Lawrence Shizzle.
Okay, I will, the last copy that I sent to Christina did have that change. And when you told me about that, I sent you a copy with it changed, so I will resend that to Christina with the change, with the addition.
You don't have to, I apologize, because you've already made the update, right?
I have made the
Yeah.
correction.
Yeah, I just didn't reprint it. I apologize, actually remember so I have it, it'll get updated, it'll get approved, and we put it on the website.
Is that the only change that was made to the minutes?
Unless other people, that's the only change unless you have more.
To these, there's no
Correct.
other changes?
Oh, well, and there's one other thing, I apologize, it does not have draft on it.
Okay.
Drafts.
So if you do want other changes, besides that one, she would have to send me a new copy.
Yeah. So does anybody else have any
No.
comments,
I
changes?
thought they're very complete. To my recollection.
Nice job, Maura.
Oh my,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna get, this is gonna get.
That raised helped.
It's hard to do.
So if there's no objections, should we have a motion to
Make a motion to accept.
second it?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the FB Environmental, Kevin Ryan. Kevin, thanks for coming, or joining us.
Certainly.
And
Thank
this,
you for having us.
okay. And Sarah, do we have that right? Yeah,
Yes.
thank you for joining us, yep. So, I don't know if any of the other commissioners know, actually, I don't know anything about your company other than I got your flyer at the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions. And we're hoping to have an NRI done this year. May go over into 2024. But I'd appreciate your starting off by letting us know a little bit about your company.
Certainly. Well, I'm Kevin Ryan, this is Sarah Large, and we're from FB Environmental, which is a small Portland, Maine-based environmental consulting firm. And we do have an office also in Dover, New Hampshire. Sarah is actually our New Hampshire secret weapon, but I'll get to that. The company started its FB because when filling out the paperwork to start a business, the boss needed a name and he didn't quite have one, so he just said his initials, FB Environmental, back in 2001. And a lot of it started with, he just started getting projects having to do with a lot of water quality monitoring, water quality fixing, and that was the core of the business for a long time. But as things have expanded in going along with the skill sets of the people that joined the company, now we have several different divisions, but the one that I am the lead of is Ecological Services Division. So we're environmental science. You can think of the physical parameters of the environment, like chemical composition of air, land, and water. With ecology is more like organisms and their relationship to one another and their environment. And so I'm, full disclosure, herpetologically biased. I'm a herpetologist by training, but with that comes needing to know wetlands and all different types of plants and animals. So in the Ecological Services Division, we do a lot of work. We work for both private and public clients and NGOs as well, doing things from anything from wetland delineations to the wetland functional assessments. We do natural resource mapping, either on a scale of a single property. A lot of times a land trust will have us to do one of their natural resource inventories for a new acquisition, whether it be fee or conservation easement. And we do natural resource inventories on a larger scale, being a town. We've done them for a number of towns now. Those are two different ballgames. They're both called natural resource inventory, but a different sort of work goes into each one. The smaller the site is, the more oriented to doing groundwork, and the larger the site, going as the scale of an entire town, is more zoomed out and working with existing data sets. It really doesn't have to involve, this doesn't necessarily need to involve on-the-ground field work. And lately, so we work with a lot of towns. We work with land trusts, big and small. And lately we call it the solar coaster. Solar development has been, since a couple of years ago, has really been taking off. So we've worked with a number of developments where people can meet their power purchase agreements at a given site and get the solar installation while at the same time not screwing up the existing ecology and the species that are there. So I've been brought into a number of endangered species projects when it refers to reptiles and amphibians. I'll give Sarah, if you want to go for a minute. Sarah worked for DOT, for a number of years, so she really knows New Hampshire. She's a New Hampshire native, knows the permitting process, but I'll let you tell it.
Sure, yeah. Thank you so much for having us today to talk about natural resource inventories. A little bit about myself. I am a wetland scientist as well as a permitting specialist. My background is both in field delineation of wetlands as well as New Hampshire wetland permitting and shoreline permitting. So if those types of needs ever come up, we have those skills in-house. And I guess I'll leave it at that, unless there's other points that come up.
Okay.
And so, as I understand it, the NRI, you're sort of in the nascent stages. You want to have one done, but you're looking to find out more about what goes into it and that sort of thing. Is if I have it right, there's not, you haven't put out a formal RFP yet or anything.
Right, exactly, and
Exactly.
with
It's very
the,
early.
with a limited budget, what can we get for the money? What would we pick and choose as being included and not included? I think that's
Okay.
part of our, I don't know if I speak for everybody here, but it's certainly one of my questions.
If I put together, or we put together, I had a short PowerPoint, would it be, that sort of talks about NRIs and what's involved in them?
Mhm.
And it should only take a few minutes. Would someone be willing to enable screen sharing? Can the host of the meeting enable screen sharing? If you're amenable to that, I can show a few slides. And
Kevin,
that ties into your question
Okay.
about which way with a limited budget you might wish to go or wish to proceed.
Kevin, would you want to be the host, or is Sarah?
I'll be the host, sure.
You should be
perfect.
all
There we go.
set.
So now Sarah, I actually haven't done this before, but I'm gonna try. Hopefully it works this way. Doesn't work that way. Can people see my screen yet? No, probably.
Not yet.
All right. Sorry, bear with me for just a sec here. All right, so we'll try it this way. Go like this. Share screen. Can people see the screen now?
Yes, you're in like regular PowerPoint.
Right, and now we cross our fingers and see, does that, can you see?
You're going to want to swap to display. Perfect.
Like that?
Yes.
There we go.
We can't see anything.
It says there's no signal.
Oh,
Well,
But you
no,
can see it, Sarah?
I can on my computer.
it doesn't have to come up on that. It could at least come up in that corner if it doesn't come up.
However
We're
it works.
getting,
I can't tell you how to do it.
that one's on, but
Don't look at me.
it hasn't been, I haven't seen that turn on, like be in sync for months.
On the side, that's where, Zach, that worked here for a while, that's how he turned it on. But That's
So-
it's on now.
I've always worked where they had an IT department, because I don't know IT. So,
That's why they have
with
it.
that said, I believe they should be able to circumvent themselves. But this, I mean, I'm gonna ruin it.
Yeah, I think we're,
I mean, I don't even know where to start.
we're not in a position to
We either.
troubleshoot the problem,
It's
so.
either us or it may be you. I believe that you could have taken up up the TV we're getting you on, but we're not even getting it there.
Right, so you don't see anything right now.
No.
No, and it might be our second TV is showing no signal, but I haven't seen that second TV work for months, at least at my meetings. Hold on, I could try
Yeah, we'll
turning,
try.
I could try turning it. Let me try it again.
If not, we can just have a
Yeah,
discussion
if
too.
not, I can just talk. There's some of the maps that I had might have been useful.
We like maps. Well, I like maps.
No good.
Now I can't even get it on.
Yeah, I think we're gonna need to move on.
Yeah, I think we'll just have you
Sorry
do
about
your
that.
best. I apologize.
Sure thing. Now I am just, can you see me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm trying to close out my own thing here and show. Let's see if that works. So I can get back to a normal display here and maybe see. Oh boy.
do you want to make me host? Would that be helpful?
You might, let's see.
If you remake the town in Newport the host, you then would be able to be back on you, I think.
Right, it's just my everything, absolutely everything. If I disappear, I will be right back because it completely froze up my computer. And I don't know how. Try the task manager.
Actually, I just reclaimed myself as host, so does that help you?
Yes.
Oh, there we go, perfect.
Let's see. Alright, Zoom sharing host and task.
Christine, is it on that now?
Oh, maybe. Eek, we lost him. But he'll come right there, he is.
You there?
Alright, it should be. I had to force things to shut down. Anyway, I had a couple slides to put together that did show examples of certain maps that we talk about. But anyway, moving back on, natural resource inventory identifies and describes the natural resources of your town. People tend to think soils, wetlands, forest types, unique features. You can get information from the National Heritage Bureau to know, and not species-specific locations, but locations where there might be rare, threatened, or endangered wildlife in the town. And this can be used, of course, to inform town officials and the public about their natural resources. So the planning board, the zoning board will find this helpful, the board of selectmen as well. But it's not just for planning, or it's not just for conservation. A lot of times it's viewed purely as a conservation tool. It's a planning tool, so it can be useful for development as well. Once you have a natural resource inventory of your entire town, you can look out and see which areas may be more suitable for conservation versus those where you might wish to concentrate, development. So with an NRI, one of the biggest parts is all the maps that come with NRI, so you can see spatially what those resources are. So map examples we have are existing buildings. You can look at soil types because hydric soils are going to be wetland. Poorly drained soils are difficult to build on. You want to know where agricultural soil is. There's wetlands, water resources. Of course, you want all the streams and ponds and everything else mapped. And one thing that pops up that, in my experience, people tend to jump at and think it's a great idea, but I try to discourage, is what's called a co-occurrence analysis, because it sounds really cool that you're looking at all these data layers that we're looking at and overlapping one another, and you see where those data layers overlap, and then use that to help assess where your priority conservation areas might be. The thing with that is that New Hampshire's already done it. They have the Wildlife Action Plan, which gets updated every 10 years, and there's data that's readily available on New Hampshire Granite, the GIS clearinghouse, that has the entire state mapped for what the cover type is. Cover type meaning forest or wetland type. What is covering the ground there? Is it building? Is it spruce fir forest? Is it Appalachian oak pine? All that stuff is mapped out, and in addition, they have habitat ranks as well. So you can look at a map that's got several different ranks looking at what is the highest, most habitat that you might want to conserve versus what is more developed and therefore not quite as important from a conservation perspective. So a lot of that has been done by the state, which is great. And with those, so the Wildlife Action Plan has habitat types, habitat ranks, and with those you can help use those layers to come up with priority conservation areas. And so, as far as, if you don't want me to get too much in the nitty-gritty of like conservation recommendations and things, please just go ahead and let me know if you want to redirect. But we say when we're talking about conservation areas, it's not just for land preservation, because you're not going to be able to conserve the priority conservation areas in their entirety, nor would people recommend it. It's because many of these mapped areas are privately owned, and that contributes taxes and contributes to the economic stability of the town. So rather a balanced approach to conservation and developing, which incorporates a suite of planning and conservation tools, is beneficial. And at the same time, development and other land use activities outside of those core conservation areas, you don't want to just like, whatever. You still want to apply some basic conservation principles when you're building those areas as well. As far as recommendations for land preservation, we attempt to add areas to existing conservation areas. That's tend the way you want to go. One of our layers would be existing conserved areas. And generally when it comes to areas of habitat, the sum or the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So the larger you can make something, the better, to buffer the interior from edge effects. We always say to partner with regional land trusts, any land trusts that may work in our area, or the New Hampshire chapter of the Nature Conservancy. And then the report would also have recommendations and warnings like large lot zoning doesn't fix anything. It tends to be viewed as a quick fix, but what that ends up doing is spreading less development over more land. You're swallowing up more land that's still going to have those edge effects. It's still going to have the effects of the development, but it's just taking up more space. So rather, usually we recommend having a clause for cluster subdivisions. And I quickly went into the Newport zoning ordinance, and it does mention cluster development in there several times. So just for example, I used to work for the Wildlife Conservation Society. That's the organization that runs the Bronx Zoo, and we had conservation subdivisions that were recommended that 25% of an area of a lot be developed and the other 75 conserved. So if you had a 100-acre lot, 25 acres development, and leave the rest intact.
Kevin, could I ask you a question quickly?
Certainly, absolutely. I mean, that's the gist of what we're talking about, but I know you're going to have specific questions, so please go right ahead.
Well, just really quickly, because I oversee planning and zoning, and actually we're redoing our master plan. So what you just stated about cluster housing, you're saying that type of dwellings, that type of arrangement, like you said, that they're in a cluster and then the rest, they take up the same amount of land as individual houses, but they cluster. That is environmentally more friendly than houses all over separated.
Mhm.
Correct.
Okay.
From an ecological perspective, it is to have the development concentrated in a smaller area and leaving the remaining area intact, as opposed to spreading everything out. Certain species, there's species that are associated with development, whether you look at birds, reptiles, mammals, anything. Certain species are associated with development. Certain are very sensitive to it. And so, like in suburban areas, deer love it. They're going to increase Canada geese, things like that. Whereas your things like wood frogs, spotted salamanders, and a whole suite of other of birds, warblers, certain types of warblers and whatnot are going to start dropping off the map because they don't do well around development. So I was going to go into a bunch of example maps. We did an NRI for Rye, New Hampshire that came out pretty well. We're proud of that project, and was just going to show a bunch of maps that had come from that project that would be an example of what you're looking for, of what you would be looking for in an NRI.
That sounds good. I had forwarded to the other commissioners the 2 NRIs, well, actually 3 NRIs that you had forwarded to us, or to me by email. I'm curious, can you give us the cost of those so we can look at them firsthand and then say this is what we get for X number of dollars? Or is that not?
Well, given that this is a public forum, that this is being recorded and is available for people to watch. What am I trying to say? So given that this is available for people to watch, there's a lot of great firms that do work, like groups of people or single individuals that do natural resource consulting work in like Maine, New Hampshire, New England. But when it comes down to it, it is competitive. And so I can't talk about actual dollar amounts because what happens is then people then see that, and if you want the project, you get undercut. It's happened before. So if this is public, I can't speak. I can tell you what I would think of what you would want to look for with a limited budget, but I can't give exact dollar amounts.
Okay, that's fair. Yep.
I, for one, would be interested in sort of your top 3 or 5 priorities that a town, especially going into the master plan building for the next 10 years. What are the priorities you think?
Hands down, if before anything, with a limited budget, and before you got anything else, I would say the mapping, the GIS mapping, and have people can work with, people as an us or a consulting firm can work with existing data sets that they compile and then produce a series of maps for the town that you can then look at. And we provide the digital files as well, so it's not just paper copies. We can give you all the electronic information in an organized fashion as well. But that upfront is going to be the most helpful, rather than having the text that's in the report with conservation recommendations and things like that. I mean, the meat of the NRI really is those maps.
So having the general,
Yeah.
so having the general layout of where your resources are in your town, we view as step one. Is just having that general landscape and documented resources in visuals, multiple maps, would be step one that we recommend.
Okay.
I mean, I've gone on Granite, Granite View quite a bit and can kind of see a lot of that data. How would an NRI work for us to, I mean, where there's already a lot of that data available if we want to just cull through it?
Great point. I think the benefit of having individual maps is having the layout of each resource in a thought out layout, rather than having to hop online and add the layers to NH Granite every time. You would just have your go-to resource and a suite of maps that cleanly show the resources. But you're right that the NH Granite View is a great resource to quickly check that type of information.
Right, you could, if you have the ability, capacity, someone who's savvy with that sort of thing, you can find NRIs online and see what they looked at, and you can view that data. It is public.
What, from those various data, what are the priorities? Naturally, I would think wetlands is a very high priority. Agricultural lands, is that higher or lower priority? We don't have...
It's on, we do include agricultural lands. There's areas mapped as prime farmland.
Is there a suite of things that generally come with the bare bones NRI, or is there still
Everything.
a few
All those
things?
maps would be, you'd have agricultural land, you'd have definitely wetlands, definitely water resources. I should always mention, every once in a while, someone gets it wrong, but even when you have all these mapped, it's not a substitute for site-specific surveys when you get an individual development proposal or something like that. Those maps aren't gospel, they're wetland maps, although New Hampshire's done a good job of finding them. Those wetland maps are based on aerial imagery, and so there's more errors of omission and occasionally an error of commission, but the boundaries are not accurate. So it wouldn't be accurate. They're not meant to be looked at the scale, like zooming in to the scale of a lot and using that as your wetland line. That would still need to be done on the ground, certainly. But again, but they are good enough to look at a scale that is zoomed out, so you can get an overall sense of the lay of the land and the landscape of your town.
Are errors more often the extent of a particular wetland, or are actual wetlands sometimes omitted?
Actual smaller wetlands tend to be omitted. So wetlands that are in the open canopy wetlands, like Scrub shrub wetlands and emergent marshes and things like that are pretty easy to pick up, but forested wetlands and vernal pools can be tough.
Yeah.
Because they can be difficult to pick out from aerial photography. And then the lines, forget, the line, if we're doing a really, really fine detailed wetland delineation for a very small lot, I mean, we're putting flags sometimes every couple feet, because every foot matters, whereas you can't get that anywhere near that level of accuracy when you're mapping it from aerial imagery.
And for I'm gonna call it a budget level NRI, can you do on-site or field work for delineating wetlands, or does it
That's a
preclude
separate
that?
thing. You wouldn't be able to do that at the scale of a town. It wouldn't make sense to do going out in the field unless, I mean, we have had significant chunks of towns before asked to have wetland reconnaissance, where we go on the ground and do it quickly with handheld GPSs, which is going to give you a much better picture, but it's still not a wetland delineation. A wetland delineation is a lot more time-consuming and expensive. So it wouldn't really make sense economically to try to incorporate any elements of wetland delineation in a natural resource inventory. It's better to have that 30,000-foot view.
And it's been our experience at a town level natural resource inventory and the use of both planning for development and further conservation, that staying higher level is the way to go, rather than the deeper dive on-site field assessment will be more costly and is more warranted for that site-specific conservation measures rather than town-level thoughts
Okay.
and recommendations.
So does that provide information enough to show an area that would preclude, or a wetland that would preclude development there? Can it be used for that, or does that, what's, it can?
It'll give you a good indication. If you had a lot that there's in the middle of a mapped wetland complex, chances are it's going to be all wetland. But then you have other areas where there's no well, it shows no wetlands, you still have to look because there could be something there.
Kevin or Sarah, could I ask a question? So say a project comes in to my department, it's a large-scale multi-housing complex, and on a private piece of property, or whatever, not necessarily private, an LLC, but someone owns it besides like the town, besides public. So would we be able to, under our authority, or the CC, or myself, be able to go walk the property without being invited to see if there are wetlands on the property?
I think, well, when it comes down to it, you would need permission to enter private property.
Well, right, to
by the
enter
way.
it, but so I wouldn't have to but though if they're requesting permitting and site plan review and everything, I'd say, well, first we need to do an analysis to see if there's any wetlands on the property. So
That would be on them. That would be on the applicant. You would say, are there wetlands on the property? And they'd be like, we don't know. And they'd be like, well, where's your wetland delineation report? That would be on them to produce the wetland delineation for you.
So I should be asking for a wetland delineation report for anyone coming in here for construction.
Yes, that's part and parcel of a construction project. Because the engineers need to know where the wetlands are, the lay of the land of the site, where the map resources are, so that you can plan accordingly. And then if they plan on impacting those wetlands, there's associated, I mean, you can do anything with a permit, but you need to get those permits. And to know if you need those permits, you need to know if there's wetlands on the site.
So, right, so since obviously I can determine who moves forward with planning or zoning and who gets permitted, I can just mandate the wetland delineation report prior.
Yes, and the map is most important. Every once in a while they'll do a map with no report, but it's good to have a report so you know what you're, or at least a memo, so you know what type of wetland they mapped.
So even if New Hampshire doesn't have it delineated itself, if I get this report and it's on there, then we could say, well, we need to go do an inspection, or you need to come in front of the Conservation Commission due to the fact there's wetlands, regardless if they're registered at the state level.
To my knowledge, it is fairly common practice, right, for planning boards to say, we want to look at the site for ourselves. I mean, I've seen that happen before.
Absolutely. We don't do that. And yeah, so that's interesting. Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
Another question about, again, sort of the bare bones or the things that should be included or things that would naturally be included would, things like wildlife habitat, migration corridors, steep slopes, for instance, are the things that you'd write off right away if it's, if you're buying these things a la carte, or is that how a NRI might work, that you buy things sort of all a la carte? Or?
Anything that the town decided it wanted. If it was like, we want a map of steep slopes, we want a map of wetlands, and we want a map of this, give me a proposal, we can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend either looking at the list of resources that are in maps from other NRIs and identifying what resources are maybe most important to the town as a way to identify if there's maybe maps or deliverables that could be cut if they're not as high of a priority. But I agree that wildlife habitat and the wildlife action plan that already has these conservation areas would be a data resource that would rise to the top for me. And it's up in steep slopes for development. That would make sense as being a high priority resource to have a map for, because it informs development or areas not to develop.
And it's also, speaking of the financial aspect of things, it's fair game to say, we have this much, what can you do?
Right. Or what's best to do.
Or what do you think is best to do? What would you do? We have this much to spend, tell me what you'd like. And people do that competitively. They say, we have this much, I'd like you to submit a proposal, yes, it's competitive, and then other people can submit as well, and then you can choose which looks the best.
Or breaking it up into phases, having phase 1 and phase 2 being another budget cycle. That's another idea. But yeah, maps and maybe high-level recommendations could be a phase 1. Where natural resource inventories can be very time-intensive is we do a deep data dive, data research into existing documentation around the resources in a town. And so there's time into literature research, review, and then summarization into a final report is where I can see the cost increasing for an NRI. But all that information is very valuable, and that's where we also can do more research and coordination with the town into what are the resources that are most important, and then what are the areas that you want to focus on the most and are looking for recommendations and guidance on the most, would be another component to a natural resource inventory project, is that communication and collaboration component.
And you can really get a lot as far as conservation recommendations by just reading those other NRIs. There's going to be general recommendations and language about wetlands and other resources, farmland and things like that that are going to be applicable to any town. Mm-hmm. So you really can get a lot from perusing those and then seeing what you may be most interested in, if not the full-blown NRI. It's the report writing, as Sarah it takes a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, so the report writing process takes a while and therefore can add cost.
So if we developed a basic NRA, say with you, what would a time frame be to bring that report back? I know that's...
The best time to work on those is the winter time. If it's a full-fledged NRI, if it's just maps, that can happen quicker. But a full-fledged NRI, complete with report writing and everything, like now, January, February, March is the best time because we're mostly in the office. And then as soon as the field season hits where a lot of the consulting firms are just outside doing a lot of field work for most of the years and juggling a lot of projects. So really when we like to write reports is when we do something big, it's ideal to get all the prep work done when it's in the busy season and then do the majority of the report writing in the winter time so you can sit down and crank it out rather than going at it piecemeal.
So
Yeah, but like,
3 to 6 months to get a report?
Longer.
Longer.
So even with properties, when we do work, we've done work for Maine Coast Heritage Trust, and their NRIs, they ask for certain properties when they have it done, and they don't expect to see reports until the end of the year.
So allow a year roughly.
Yeah, that gives.
Yep. Okay.
and that would be for the whole report, the research base and writing up a report. The maps, like Kevin said, a company could probably do them quicker, because they're less time intensive, but I would still say a few months for that data collection and then deliverable production.
Okay. Any other questions? Larry, Gunther, anything?
I think you've answered a lot of good questions have been asked, too.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kevin and Sarah. We appreciate you
Thank you for
joining
having
us.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
Take care now.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay.
My takeaway from all that is that we really,
Need to look at NRIs.
pardon me?
Need to look at other NRIs. and come
Yeah,
up
but
with the basic.
eventually, I think we need to know what our priorities are. that
Absolutely.
We want,
Well, that's what he was saying, if we looked at other NRIs
Yeah.
and picked out
Yeah.
what we thought were.
So there isn't such a thing as like the
Basic, no.
like basic cable, and then you can add stars or.
HBO.
Yeah,
But don't-
no, it sounds like everything is à la carte,
Yeah.
and we gotta, know in order those.
But don't we need a figure for the warrant article?
Yes, right?
And we don't have time.
We don't have time for that, we don't have time for.
No, you have to get it, you just make up a figure tonight. I
But the
mean,
warrant article is for the NRI,
Yes.
correct?
That's what I think.
Right,
Yes.
so we
Is
don't
that-
have any time
are
to
we-
go
are
read.
No,
Are we moving on to discussing the warrant article now?
No, we're talking about,
well,
Yeah.
they kind of go
My-
hand in hand, but
I-
I think
I
that's the
would
next
go-
agenda item.
my personal opinion, I was to take someone's advice of what is the natural first steps, whether we like them or not. That will eat up whatever money, if we are able to get it. Because logically, I would think it's like building a house, or sure that you should start with a framework where we shouldn't like just pick, I want to figure out where all, the most rare plants are in town. That would seem like maybe more something when we're rich and we've had that NRI for years. I would think there's got to be a natural course of building blocks. And that I would think that, or I would hope that BOS could consider putting money aside besides a warrant article, 3, 4, 5 grand for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years to beef it up so we looks like we should have something that we should have had 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about the possibility of getting a basic one done and then going back later on to build on it,
Beef
but
it up.
I don't know how well that would be received. From one budget year to the next, to go back and say, well, I could see people coming to us and say, well, I thought you did it already.
Well, no, but the normal, you would go just to be, I think the warrant article seems so severe. You can have it added in the budget. It's a normal course of work it's like we're redoing the master plan right now.
I'm in agreement, but how do we don't control the purse strings, so.
Well, but that's why Barry, and he's a huge advocate for this, and then I think having this consultant firm, or the last person that was here that could explain, and I'm not talking a lot of money, I mean, come on, we couldn't save up 3, have it set aside for like a few years in a row to then beef it up in like 5 years. I would think that'd be relatively easy.
Well, yeah,
I know, but
Who
you
gets that
present in
done?
front of
I
BO.
don't know how
You
that-
present in front of BOF.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Kenny.
Could you answer a question possibly? I mean, they're saying that the planning board this is one of their biggest tools. So where is the planning board on
It's,
doing
right,
that?
so, okay, so the planning board is very different personalities, and I don't even know how aware they are on how important because since we've never had one, I feel, I wasn't even aware until we had that first presentation. And us not having one at all, this is a normal working document that we're legally supposed to have, and the town is supposed to fund.
Well, I see it as being
So-
our contribution to the update of the master plan. That's the way I view
Bar
it.
none.
Right.
So a survey is going out. We just completed the survey that's gonna be mailed. I'm hoping I'm gonna mail out by the first of next month.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna cost $3,000 to mail to every dwelling, 4,000 dwellings, with an envelope, the survey, and a return envelope. And it's gonna all be done by someone else. It's not in my budget.
And that- is
And
the
we're
sur-
doing it.
Is the survey,
It's part of the master plan.
is
and
it
we are
cast
ju-
in stone?
Of course it is, because everyone's like, you have to do the master plan.
No, I understand that, but has the survey been developed?
It's been
'Cause
completed, yes.
It's been completed,
Yeah.
so,
Conservation is on there. They
yeah,
talk
I was
about
gonna
it.
say how, we never submitted any kind of recommendations or
I know.
anything.
I know, it's hard, right, and you probably should have, although I think I kind of agree with Ken or you that a bigger part of it, forget the survey, would be getting an NRI for them to base future things on. This is something, though, legally required. It's like a master plan. We don't get certain funding if you don't have a master plan. You can't have a planning board or zoning board if you don't have a master plan. The NRI isn't let people vote, we want a new basketball court.
But Ken's question, I think, was, doesn't the zoning or planning have a budget to do the NRI?
No.
Because they-
All
Now,
right.
I did,
Okay.
remember I had
All right.
consulting fees, but then I was voted down
Right.
on using them.
Right.
So if I can't, and that's
Okay.
my own budget.
So they didn't present any kind of dollar amount for us, which we were expecting a dollar amount. A range,
Yeah,
a
so,
range.
right,
We
or
were
what can-
expecting a
What can you
range.
get for
Right,
roughly this much?
exactly.
Base point.
So we wanted to get a figure for this warrant article.
Uh-huh.
So we don't have any time to go into RISE NRI,
Mhm.
right? What are some of the figures that we tossed around the last 5 meetings? Was 8?
Well, I
12?
thought that's what we were focused on, because that was the number that was presented by Barry as something that he discussed with Paul Brown. So I thought.
Was 12 or 8 or what?
And 12,000, that's what's in our minutes from December,
Okay,
12,000, and then we go to these people and say, what can we get for 12,000?
right.
That's
And then
really
you
what we're
end
doing.
there and you work it year
Right.
by year, and
Right.
I'd
It's
like
like going to
to.
car dealership, I've got $8,000, what
Right,
can I get for $8,000?
right,
And no
It's not
one,
really the right way to do it, but it's really where we've ended up
yeah.
at this point.
Well, so I think that, I mean, obviously the town isn't going to do it, so we have to do it, so I think we just need to come up with a dollar amount and move forward.
Right, go ahead, Larry.
Barry's not here, and I wish he had, because
Really?
I wasn't clear talking to him when we passed on the street, whether or not there was discussion at the Board of Selectmen or at the town level about maybe them, the town paying for an NRI. I haven't seen any meetings on TV or minutes.
But this is the town
Was
paying
there-
for it. The warrant article is the town.
But out of the town's
Originally-
operating.
From the general budget.
Yeah, Barry.
originally, Barry and I were told by Hunter that it was gonna go, and then all of a sudden, no, which really isn't, it's a BOS
Okay, so
presentation.
to answer my question, there was
talk.
There was some talk, and now it's pretty clear that the town doesn't want to fund
No,
this
no,
from
it came
general
from
budget.
Hunter. He just said no.
Yeah, okay.
He said, go through a warrant article, and I never thought, usually it's BOS that decides the budget. Barry also called me because the administrators here didn't put in his request for you guys to have your $1,500 a year. And so I had to walk upstairs and say, the Board of Selectmen wants this on, and the Board of Selectmen then wants the BOS to vote on it.
Huh,
We had to make them.
huh.
So no, I don't believe the town is against this. I do think if there was a presentation in front of BOS, whether it's over the next year or not, I think they would have building blocks for this. They would understand how important it is. We're doing new wells and looking for new watersheds. This is phenomenally important, and I do believe BOS would be involved.
Yeah, well, the NRI would include that.
On board, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, really, this board, this commission is advisory.
That's right.
And I know
And so that's,
Barry,
our job is to advise
and Barry's on your side.
somebody else to get the NRI done. It's really not up
And I
us to
do
get it done.
believe
Yeah.
if there's a presentation, it will be looked at seriously. Every other town sets aside a few thousand, whatever they decide to use it on, whether it's to beef up an NRI, or they use it for fertilization, for getting rid of invasive species, or whatever they're doing.
So we're into developing a master plan. That's actually happening.
It's actually happening, and
But
there's
there's no NRI.
There's no budget for it, there's no NRI, and listen though, when I go and say we're doing a mailing, it's not even a blip on the radar that I'm dropping $3,000 that I don't have money for, because it's a required thing, or you don't get, and so is this, it's just that
Yes.
it's being,
So can we move the discussion? Let's do the warrant article, let's put in a figure, we gotta do it. We don't have any time.
Well, the
It's Monday.
discussion, let me ask this, if we finalize the warrant article, which we plan on doing, we finalize the language, that doesn't cast it in stone as something that's going to occur.
it casts.
It could still
It
change.
casts it in stone as that, well, a lawyer would review it if we wrote anything wrong.
Right.
But it cast it in stone that it would be at the town meeting and presented, which you,
When does that,
the town meeting,
you mean the minute we finalize the language?
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But what you want, and there's a meeting on Monday, and I know it's a holiday, that's why I'm like dying to get this in. So if anyone watched the budget advisory, I think it was from last night or Monday night, the library just asked for a warrant article that they're putting on for $200,000 to be approved by the BOS for a new roof at the library, which I listened to it, it sounds ridiculously like everyone should be on board for this. They've been spending thousands of these funds to fix this roof in the leaks. They're gonna and they got BOS approval. The library isn't gonna pay for that, it's BOS, the board, it's gonna go in our budget.
Yeah.
If we could get, and Barry's already on board, if we could get someone to go and, so we're gonna present the warrant article, it goes on regardless, even if BOS says, we hate that thing, they have to put it on. But I believe we could write approved by the Newport Board of Selectmen, which holds a lot of weight, and then Barry would be reading the article in front of the town that evening, and then he would talk about it and take questions about it.
Okay.
And I believe it will get approved if someone goes and presents it Monday. There might be another budget meeting, I think it's one of the last
What would
ones.
be approved, the warrant article?
The warrant article is already approved regardless, but us getting BOS approval of this
Oh,
warrant.
I see. Yeah, I was gonna ask, it's written here, recommended by the BOS.
I know, I just
That's
put
not
that
cast
in.
in
I know,
stone.
it hasn't happened yet, because I'm positive
Yeah.
thinking, absolutely.
Okay.
And
Go ahead,
I
Mike.
can double check how many more budget meetings there are, but we could go to any of them, present this, and you ask the board, which Barry is on, and Barry is beyond all for this.
Larry, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay, we have a warrant written. I'd like to move that we approve an article or a warrant article to go to the town and as written, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of, I would say, $16,000 to be transferred to the Conservation Commission Treasury for the purpose of creating a natural resources inventory for the town of Newport.
Is this the time for discussion, or?
Well, there's got to be a second before discussion.
Second. Second for discussion.
Okay. I have an addition that I would like to include in this, and that's that this should be part of or this is for the purpose of updating the master plan, the town master plan.
That's not a bad idea, adding and everyone. That's actually a great, okay, so wait, how do you want to, so,
Well, technically, then you got to amend my,
oh, you do have to amend it, and I would need to know the exact
I
word.
just moved it, exactly.
Right, so
Right,
you would have
well,
to
that's why,
So rescind.
rescind your motion.
Okay.
So now it's discussion.
So
Just
you
put-
Okay, I'll
rescinded it.
withdraw the motion.
Withdraw.
okay, thank you. So
Now
now, open
I
for
move-
discussion. Okay,
New motion, that we approve and move to the town an article as written, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $16,000 to be transferred to the Conservation Commission Treasury for the purpose of creating a natural resources inventory for the town of Newport, period. This, I'll need a little help with this.
Will be beneficial to all.
The purpose of updating.
The purpose being for the updating of the
Master
10-year master plan.
Could I say-
Currently in process?
Yes, and you could also say for us to come in compliance with the RSA, blah, 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 and I can
Okay.
come up with it. Because we're out of compliance.
right, so Larry's making the motion.
Yeah, I'd leave, I don't
That
think I'll
out.
make it too,
Okay.
make it very simple.
So then tell, so,
For the purposes, and we'll use Linda's term, phraseology, for the purpose of
Updating, is it updating?
the 10-year master plan.
yeah, it's
Okay.
updating
We'll make
or
that, yeah.
are we recreating
So
it or are we
if-
updating it?
So that would read, the resources inventory for the town of Newport, period, for the purposes of updating the 10-year master plan, period.
And, well, you don't want to put in, and to be in compliance?
I'd leave that.
How
I
about-
think that could be explained at town
Yes,
meeting. If people ask the question, why are we doing this?
All right.
The presenter can
Okay.
explain very well, we're not in compliance. I think keeping the articles a little less.
Okay.
well, it is gonna, so should it be for the required purpose of updating the master plan? Because it is required.
How about that? For the, I'll
For the
amend it
requirement
to
of-
say, for the required purpose of updating the 10-year master plan.
Okay, so that's your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay, and do we have a second on it?
Second.
Discussion, I put in 16,000, the more I listen to these folks, and the more I'm thinking, well, you know,
No, I think,
we better not reach for lots of money, but I think we may need a little more than, say, 12, which was a figure we wanted. So I thought 16 might be the kind of money we could go for bare bones.
Do you know what the master plan is gonna cost?
Well, the survey alone is gonna be, well, for getting the survey out and then compiling the information. And again, this is not budgeted for, but it has to be done, so they're gonna take it out of like the general fund,
I
which
don't care about that.
yeah, they have,
What's the number?
so, and then there's gonna be the printing of the master plan.
What's the number for the master?
So I'm thinking, so without hiring any consultants to do anything, so I'm doing most of the grunt work, and just the stuff that I literally can't print massive, probably 30 grand.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for.
I would like to, in the discussion, I know I'm not really supposed to be, could we just say the 2023 master plan? Because a 10-year master plan sounds benign to me.
yes, I think that sounds better.
Even though you are
Or would
supposed
be
to
the
do it.
2023 master plan update,
Yes.
or is it 2024? I don't.
Right, yeah.
By the time this master plan gets
It'll
around,
be
You're
2024.
right, you're right,
Yeah.
you're right. You're right, okay, fine, skip
No, I
that,
think-
skip that.
yeah. Okay, so we have a second. Do we have enough discussion? Anybody want to add more?
one last point of finance is what would, if they happen to be unexpected
Anticipated, unanticipated?
yeah, not unexpended funds
Ah.
from the original, what becomes of that?
I believe with warrant articles that and you don't, if it got transferred, this wouldn't be possible to not have spending, because we know you could spend up to like 80, but say there wasn't. The town, say we were buying a bicycle, and I thought the bicycle cost 500, and I got one for 400, and I got
What happens with,
the 100
let's
goes.
say it's 12,000,
The-
there's
the-
X, 4,000 extra, what happens
It goes
then?
back into the general fund.
Okay.
If it met your needs, which this would be impossible to go back in. but-
No, it doesn't. The Conservation Commission's fund is Conservation Commission's fund.
Yeah,
But this
We're-
warrant article's saying specifically
If
for.
we're asking for 16,000,
it's being transferred to our treasury, so.
that's what you
that's
said.
non-lapsing.
And if it goes to 14, if it costs us 14, we gain 2.
Yeah,
But not when you say creating, so say we never spend one more penny on the NRI, I don't believe we can keep it.
Yeah, I think that's a question for Paul Graham.
Yeah.
Or
That's not-
legal, right.
That's not something we can
But
just
I don't
decide.
think we have to worry about that, but
No, we're gonna
right,
spend the
cool if we can
16,000.
keep it, I
But
wouldn't say
I'm just saying,
anything.
when it's asking to go back into that fund, it doesn't go, monies don't go back to general fund from Conservation Commission.
generally not.
Generally not. I know if we get like fire trucks in a warrant,
We're
right,
not the fire department.
that would be different, right.
I look at stuff, what I did with buildings, and it's different than the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
We'll spend the full amount, and I'm sure the consultant will be happy to make sure of that.
And if
So-
legally we're held to another standard,
Yeah.
they'd let us know.
I think that might muddy the waters a little bit if we put any kind of wording to that effect.
No,
Yeah, no, I
this is gonna be they write them very simply, and Paul told me that I should write it like this,
Mm-hmm.
and then a lawyer will look this over to make sure Paul and everyone's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you want.
So Maura, do you have that language written down, that Larry's made the motion on?
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $16,000 to be transferred to the Conservation Commission treasury for the purpose of creating a natural resource inventory for the town of Newport for the purpose of updating the required 10-year master plan.
Is that it, Larry, you think?
That's how we,
Sounds really
Thank you,
good,
Maura.
Maura.
that's it.
Okay, so before we vote, I just wanted to make sure we had that cast in stone. All right,
Well done, Maura.
any further discussion? If not, then I guess we'll have a show of hands. All in favor? Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. All
Good
right.
job pulling a figure out of
Thank
the
you,
air,
Larry.
Larry.
I like that number.
No, I think we were close to that
Okay.
when we talked about it.
I was disappointed that they wouldn't give us a
Well,
number.
I understood.
I
that.
understood that, but still.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I won't go into it too much, but Moosewood was much more free with.
Yeah.
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 So I guess we're moving on to the next agenda item, which I believe, just quickly to ask, could we get a treasurer's report from Paul Bill?
No, I don't have it.
So you didn't
Okay.
get,
That's another reason why, yeah, I did, and you can't even get a whole, I've been trying to talk to Paul, right, you can't get anything out of him. Right now, it's budget season. I will say though, could I possibly send an email out tomorrow with the updated article? Because it's all, that to make sure when it goes into writing, it's written correctly with the way you guys agree. I think I'm allowed, I can do
The
that.
warrant article.
The warrant article. And then could I send in that how many more budget meetings there are? And I correlate with Barry and possibly one of you could attend to talk to the talking points,
Yeah,
which
I think we could probably get a few of us to go.
would be
Would you
highly,
be willing to go?
When?
I don't know, when is the meeting?
well, I know there's one, unfortunately, there was supposed to be one tomorrow night. Or,
No, the 16th was canceled.
and it got moved to the 20th,
20th is a regular BOS meeting. It will also have,
the budget.
yeah.
And that's President's Day, they're doing it that night. I know there's one President's Day, are there any past President's Day, or is that the end?
There are lots of past
Yes.
presidents.
I know,
To
are there
talk
any
about the
budget
warrant
meetings
article.
past President's Day?
Okay, so we can
There
figure it
are-
out.
They're on here.
Okay.
Okay, so I think
I was to say,
Monday,
the next Board of Selectmen.
Yeah,
I
we'll try to
think-
get a small team.
I think the
Yes,
20th.
yes, do whatever you can in the email.
Let me find all of that
Yeah,
out, and I'll
whatever,
get all that,
yeah,
and it'll go out to you tomorrow.
sounds
Laura?
good.
One question on the warrant article. Is this going to be a petition warrant article that had been expressed a while back, a couple of meetings ago? Or is it just going to be on the, you're going to try and get the approval of the Board of Selectmen, so it will just be a regular?
Yeah.
I don't know the difference between the two, so I'm
You're
afraid.
going for the recommendation, and Barry, I had that conversation, he really, Barry is very engaged with this, NRI.
Excuse me, more, how many people do you have to have for a petition article?
25.
Well, that wouldn't be too
So
much.
No, that'd be
that
easy.
just gets it onto the, now you're better off to go with the bonus.
Well, it's better if it's backed by the
Yeah.
Right.
BOS,
Right.
right? Okay,
Okay,
all right. So does that answer your question more? Okay,
Okay.
excellent, thank you.
I think it was helpful that we put in the language, that it's gonna back the master plan, because if they're engaged in doing the master
Yeah.
plan but not wanting to do a portion of it,
Doesn't make
it
sense.
doesn't look good.
No. Not to mention the fact that it's been called for in the master plan that's been in effect for 10 years.
And then go back to whether we're in or out of compliance is another
Okay.
issue.
So, treasurer's report will be deferred till our March meeting, hopefully. We'll get
Yes.
there. I guess the next topic would be the letter to the abutters. Abutters? Abutters?
I see a bunch.
Butters,
We got a butterer.
Butter.
One thing I was gonna add, aside from the language, or not add, but suggest, was that we include the report on the Barton parcel from the CLSP, from Charlotte Harding, just
Yes.
with the letter, so, but the language still remains to be discerned, so where are we with that? I'm not even sure, honestly. I got-
The report?
No, the letter to the abutters?
Well, all it is it's because last month we didn't have the meeting because of the storm. So I just drafted up a generic one, and you guys can manipulate it, or rearrange it, or tear it apart, or write a new one, or do whatever you want, whatever you don't like about this. It's just that,
Kenny, go ahead.
I thought, I understood that it was to come from the Board of Selectmen. Was the.
Charlotte Harding recommended that it come from the Board of Selectmen.
okay, I
Can we
can
get
do
the Board
that.
of Selectmen to do that?
I will have to, I think I'll have to go in person to request them.
Has the Board of Selectmen seen the report?
No,
No. That kind of was what I thought, it might be the case. Did Barry,
I mean, I guess I'm
has
not.
Barry mentioned that to the Board of Selectmen at any point? Does anybody know?
I watch 90% of the board section. I've never heard them bring up Conservation Commission.
why couldn't it come from Christina?
Because she's planning and zoning it. The strongest point Charlotte made was that it would come from the Board of Selectmen.
They are the top dogs.
They own
I
the-
will-
However, but why can't,
The
Own the
Select
land.
Board could delegate it to another division of the town. It could come from the town manager.
It can come from me, too. I'm allowed to do it, because
Exactly, right.
you stated people were in violation, so I can easily send these letters out as a nice warning. We have to do the inspection. We saw obvious violations in zoning, much less you encroaching on that. So, again, I have every authority on my own, but I will say, I thought it should come from you guys personally, but you didn't
I
want
don't
that,
either.
so I will ask whoever you want me to on the bottom. It does not, I do not need to own this.
go ahead.
Well, personally, I don't care who it comes from, as long as it comes from the town. And I think Charlotte was recommending the Select Board as being the highest,
They are.
they're the legislative body of the town.
They own.
I would be enforcing all the infractions, period. So even though it comes from them, I would be in essence, I enforce all the infractions. So I will, at some point, and probably this spring, is gonna go up there, and if I see disruptions like in the stone wall, I'm gonna send a letter to the owner that abuts that and says, you know, this is a warning, and then, or if debris, blah, 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 and then obviously the setbacks, they're gonna get that it has to be moved.
Is the town manager aware of this?
No, because I handle all violations.
Okay.
The town manager is aware of this from the historical point.
From
He
the
sent
fact
out,
that it
he
happened
sent out,
before.
yeah, he sent out a letter.
Hunter did, or?
Oh, yes, he did.
No, it was 10 years ago, it was 2012. I think.
Yeah, but Hunter sent out a letter first, and then I think it went to the Attorney General.
In 2012,
Shane.
Hunter's.
Or Shane, whatever. It was
Hunter's only
Shane,
been here
yes.
like 5
Sorry.
years.
I mean, Christina, if you send out a letter, from my experience with municipalities, it would make sense for you to CC
Yes.
Hunter.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
So that would be one thing I would suggest.
I think Christina should send it.
That's fine. I have no problem with that.
I know,
Right, no
just to
problem.
expedite the process.
Right.
Because waiting for the Board of Selectmen, I think, is a death knell to the
Yeah,
whole
I
process.
think just putting on the letter, you're saying CC Hunter.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
and on the
If
letter.
not the select board, I
And
don't.
I can CC, I can put the, you guys should all get every letter to every abutter I send. I can CC, I can put lots of CCs, because I agree with you. Well, I would enforce all these encroachments, whatever we visually see, and some of them might not be provable. It could just be a warning that you may have not done what we see as this damage here, but would just keep in mind that, you know, that is an infraction of conservation land. So, absolutely.
The emails that we put back and forth to each other, that the town manager wasn't in CC'd on those when we were discussing who should be informing the,
No, I don't hear,
Butters.
nothing I'm aware of, no. And they're not aware that the report included infractions, so to speak. They should be made aware by somebody.
He's on the outskirts aware because of that no dumping sign. So that there was an issue there. Everyone, because I talked to it went from Public Works, then they said the police chief. The police chief said Hunter, and I actually had to ask Hunter a few times. Like, I think you reminded me, Hunter never responded. So then he said, fine. So he's aware that, and I even wrote the Attorney General, we had gotten in trouble for this before, remember? So Hunter was kind of aware, and then he said, sure, go do the no dumping sign. But I just handle violations, zoning
Okay.
or otherwise.
So I'm just
So let me do CC to be,
looking at this letter, other than for maybe some, what do I want, housekeeping, yeah,
editing.
I'm having a senior moment, editing. I would say it's fine, in my opinion, other than CCing Hunter and possibly the
I've
select
got
board
that down.
doing both of those.
And include the
Anybody-
report.
Anybody have any more discussion on that, or?
If this letter goes out as it is, I writing this letter, it probably should be I am writing.
That's
this
what,
letter.
yeah, I would,
Oh, okay, right,
Courtesy is spelled incorrectly.
right, okay. Yeah, so I could do such, right, I obviously wrote this.
that's what I
up.
meant by editing, or,
I'm just thinking of.
Well, beyond edit,
Go with
beyond
edits. I
editing,
got some edits.
okay,
Oh, okay, go for it.
let's do it.
Okay, I would say, in line 2, located on Summer Street, I'd also include Ann Swan Street.
yes.
okay,
Right.
hold on, well, that's line, okay. Summer Street located on Summer and Swan,
Swan Street.
and Swan Street. So I'm gonna do and Summer and Swan Street. Okay, go, keep going after that. I could also send this out once I do all the edits.
Okay.
Because we can correspond on editing. That's not, do you know, of editing of a
Okay.
letter. All I'm saying, so you guys can feel comfortable.
On the 5th line, I think it's during 2022 required inspection of the parcel commission witnessed.
Yeah.
Okay, during the
Past
22
tense.
required inspection,
And
why don't
then I
I,
would say, and documented infractions including with a semicolon, and then put the bullet points.
Good point, Larry.
okay, wait, could you repeat that, Larry?
So during 2022, that was the end of the fourth line.
Yep.
Into the fifth, required inspection of parcel. The Conservation Commission witnessed past tense
Violations.
and documented infractions, and I would say including with a semicolon,
Yeah.
and then put the bullet points.
So right after infraction.
Okay, yes, semicolon.
Put the word
Oh,
including.
including and semicolon.
Yeah.
Yep, that
Yeah.
sounds nice.
And then among the infractions, do we want to mention there were ATV tracks?
Absolutely.
Was there an ATV? Well,
Is
I
that,
wasn't on the
is that
inspection.
prohibited? I'm not even sure that ATVs on the property are prohibited.
My understanding was that there were tracks that were sort of a cut trail that was not.
That's true.
Correct.
Yes. there was
And
something-
I think it's okay with me if it's not included, but I thought that might be something we'd want to include. That,
Sure.
there was, it looked as if somebody had cut his or her own trail to access
Correct.
the designated.
Well, they more, I mean, there are pieces of plywood that were laid down, so they actually created a trail.
Uh-huh.
So,
Should I write, cuttings of any,
Right,
what is
true.
it, vegetation, was
Yeah.
it vegetation?
Oh, yeah,
or Trees
right.
and vegetation on this property is, what prohibited? Severely prohibited? Or is just
Prohibited is
prohibited
fine.
in all
it's
settings?
prohibited is
And
fine.
I could say, there were, maybe we should say, we viewed, right, homemade trails, because that would be,
Homemade trails is prohibited. They are prohibited, yes.
okay, cutting, so you know what I'm gonna
Keep it
do?
simple enough, all those bullets are one line and don't,
Right,
Yeah.
trees,
brevity is always good.
Yep.
vegetation are
And
prohibited.
if it's not included, that's fine, but I didn't know if it should be included.
And then again, I will send this out, and if you see any either mistakes or you want to change something, I don't believe that's in us editing a letter that you're approving it isn't a violation of public.
So when you send that out, if we can get everybody to respond promptly if possible, that would be great.
Yeah,
So that we can
Yep.
go on with this, get
Yep.
on with this and get it
Okay.
off our,
We gotta get this done,
get
yeah.
it off our.
Okay, I'll update that, send it out with the CCs, the inclusion of the amended report, and then the other things inside.
Sounds great. I'm
did
sorry.
did the no dumping signs come in?
No, I actually, today, I think, and I better write it, I already wrote it, contact Public Works again, because I haven't heard anything, even though they were in all those emails, so.
Did
I'm-
Todd respond in the affirmative?
No.
No, he hasn't even responded.
No,
Oh, jeez.
so, yeah, so I wonder who, would that be, I could call Craig, who's highway and roads, that would be more him, like stop signs, right, highway?
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna ask Craig to order it, because it's approved by everyone under the sun.
Yeah,
Okay,
just a matter of getting it done, getting them to do it. If we put up plenty of signs, if they want, they can just give us the sign and we'll go put it up.
you won't have to, we don't want, they can
Just kidding.
hammer it in, but yeah, I know, that's, where you're.
This is for Ms. Donovan. Your CCs, is that going to be to the Conservation Commission, the town manager, and the Board of Selectmen?
I have at least town manager and board secretary. I also suggested, should you be just CC'd on it?
That's fine,
So it shows kind of your approval of the,
three of
Yeah.
us, yes, or three entities.
especially since I'm talking about you in the letter.
Yeah, that's.
Okay,
great. That's great.
and then, so I got
Wanted to
BOS
clarify that.
and Conservation Commission. Thank you, Maura.
So, are we done with that one,
Yes.
as far as everybody's concerned? The NRI funding information from Fitzwilliam, Claremont, and New London Conservation Commissions.
We can skip this. I printed out, budget reports from some towns.
Yeah, it's
And
really-
that are in all of your packets, and then
Yeah.
I actually printed out 2 sets they're larger, and I can make more copies of
Wow.
full NRIs from other towns.
Wow, good for you.
And I think they're great, because they're so large, but anyone who wants all of them or more, we just go over and copy. But I
Wow.
also included how people are working their numbers and how this is a normal practice. NRIs are required by an RS.
Wow.
Right. Okay.
So I gave that more information for us to maybe talk in the future of voting on us petitioning BOS to generate money the way other towns do.
Right.
Via
Yeah.
the moose grants, is strictly for and/or the cutting of trees. The money fully goes to the town now. We get a portion, 5%. You know?
I said that right along.
Something like that, but that would be up to you guys.
So, in our December minutes along these lines, we noted that the question was raised whether or not the Conservation Commission could use funds that are part of Topaz's budget to expend monies for our operations.
Mhm.
And it said there would be a conversation with Paul Brown. Paul Brown would be consulted.
What
Was that-
date, what date was that? Was that December?
It's from our December minutes.
I missed that meeting, I was actually in the hospital.
Yeah, she
So
wasn't here.
what, I don't know what, so I have had to push through a few things, like even your fees to go to that conference, and Paul questioned me, they have their own money, even though it's my budget, and I said, it's my budget, and I have the money, put it through. So, and I am allowed to sign off, unless it's over $1,000. So I am getting pushback.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is Conservation Commission's funding is a separate entity from the town. I said that when you first made the suggestion that you would do that you can't do that.
Well, if there's money in my budget, and I do it for anyone else that wants to go
Yeah,
to a
but that's,
conference.
it's within the town. You're talking about two different apples.
No, I'm talking about my other boards.
I know, but they're two different apples. The other boards are part of the structure of the town. This is
And you
a
don't
separate-
believe you are.
I know we're not,
We're a commission,
we're a commission.
yeah. So,
So it'd be like you telling the barber shop across the street you were gonna send it to barber school. You can't do that.
Well,
But
right,
you could tell a firefighter that you're gonna send them some way to learn something.
I agree with you. I do think, though, I do have somewhat of discretion, but that's fine. Well, I got it through. So it didn't come out of your budget. But so I wanted some of my monies to go, I had that $3,000. I was told, that was another part that when Barry and I asked, spend it on conservation. Absolutely, if you have it in your budget. And then, again, it got changed. So I do think there's some leeway. It's not like there's any legality issue I think I have to worry about. But possibly I could look into that.
I think that what happens is if we are going to expend money for our operating budget out of Topaz's budget, then the need to go and get our own separate operating budget is moot, right? I mean, it negates that. So I think that's a question that's been asked multiple times at these meetings. I don't know where we're heading with it.
But wait a minute, but CC's, you're not doing this just to pay dues. You could save money up to acquire new land. You could save, like if you were to.
That has to be approved by the BOS.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's where these monies are generated from other towns naturally. They're given money that are generated either through timber
So you're
cutting.
saying that we would want to go and get our own operating budget with the approval of the BOS to have anything that's left over moved into our conservation fund, as opposed to using Topaz money to fund our operations?
Well, let's even pretend Topaz doesn't exist. All towns that I've seen have somehow are generating money within the town
Yeah,
budget
yeah.
to go towards it, whether you save it every year and it just accumulates to hundreds of
But we're
thousands.
kind of talking about two different things. One is an operating budget, one is having money go into the conservation fund.
But I agree with you. If we had a line item that is natural that Barry did, and you possibly get other funds through the money provided by Timber or something, if that's approved, then no, I don't think I'd spend out of mine. But since I have the money, I know what I've spent and what I have left, and that then preserving your money for other more important things, yeah, paying for you good guys to go to a class. But again, no, I think if the line item gets put in the general fund, and then potentially you request a portion of, the way other towns do, then no, I would think you would manage everything.
So, I mean, it could be as simple as the commission going to, or communicating with the Board of Selectmen, asking them for an operating budget with the unspent balance going into the conservation fund annually.
Which Barry has done.
Right, which is going in.
Is that's official?
He's done.
Yes,
I know,
yes.
And they said no.
yes.
And you're saying,
Oh, wait, it went in front of, so,
I believe that was a
Apples and
discussion.
oranges, the warrant article or the line item for, Barry
The line item for operating budget,
has also been nixed.
yeah.
this cycle, just
Who
within
did-
the last 2 weeks.
I don't know about the last 2 weeks.
How do
it
you
was
know that?
last
How
year.
How do you know that?
When, was in the last meeting when Barry was here, we discussed it.
Oh, no,
He
he
had
put it
brought that
on
up.
for the 2023, 2024 budget he had to put in. And that, they've only been discussing that this month. They've only had meetings this month.
So for this year, for a line item of operating budget.
For the 2023, 24, so it would start in July 1st. And I could find out, I do not believe it's been nixed yet. Oh, but I've listened.
All right.
Well, we
I
need to know
misspoke.
somehow, we're gonna find that out.
I misspoke that because
But you're right, we haven't had a
first
meeting before.
amount
Yeah.
that he
Those
discussed
discussions
with,
were.
they said no.
Maybe John, who records all of the budget meetings, could inform the commission? Because-
John, you're listening?
John's-
Yeah.
I think John.
Well, no, I can just walk upstairs and look at the budget tomorrow and see if it's still in there.
Mhm.
They have these huge folders that they bring, if you've ever watched, I can just walk upstairs tomorrow.
Well, I mean, it'd be good to find that out, because if we can find that out one way or the other, if it's not being considered, then it's up to us to make some kind of effort to get it considered. Whether it's by writing a memo to the
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen,
Let me find out,
No, I
because I
don't
just,
Barry here tonight.
going to the BOS meeting, I don't know.
Yes. Right now, we've relied on Barry to speak for us there. That's his duty. He's the representative
Mhm.
of the board.
So maybe an email sent to Barry asking him an answer to that question?
absolutely, I
Would
could
probably
say,
be
is
the
it
best
still
way to
in?
address it.
Yep, I would
Get it
assume
done.
the line item came up, or if it hasn't come up, it's gonna come up in the remainder of the meetings, since it's brand new, and it's not just something that's always been, like, my budget's always in, they don't usually scrutinize it, because they're like, okay, this is the same as last year. But since it's new, Barry would then talk about it a little, and then they would vote. I would be hard pressed to see the 12, 1,500, I think it's either 12 or 15 he asked for, but let me find out. I will email Barry tomorrow.
You gonna do that?
Or anyone can, would you like to?
I don't care. I don't feel,
We need an answer.
Sure,
We
sure, go
need an
ahead.
answer.
I just want an answer, I don't care
Yeah.
who
Go ahead.
sends the email.
Go ahead, Doc.
Okay. Okay.
Pretty sad we can't even get a no dumping sign.
We can, we are. It's just me keep bugging people, yes.
Frustrating.
Yeah, it is very frustrating.
Anything new or different, outside, they're like, what do they, I think, yeah, it gets like, we don't have time, it's, I don't. And it might have to wait till spring to like pound it into the ground, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
That does make sense.
So I'll work on
expect-
it, but you're right, I haven't gotten a response.
But at least a response.
I didn't want to get talking about that. I'm
Right,
just
so
trying to-
I'm gonna chase on that, I will.
This community, I feel, has not looked at the Conservation Commission as anything of substance.
Well, we're trying to change that.
Yes, we are. and
Yeah.
I'm not talking about this board at all, or the people that are involved with recording, or, we look at other communities that are, you're talking about being out of compliance, not even having the NRI,
I know.
and it's the planning board that's supposed to produce the NRI, and here we're trying to do their work. So it's a little frustrating.
Well, we're trying to change it, I
Yeah.
think, it's gonna take time,
Yeah.
because, we're already putting
Oh,
our best foot forward in some respects, and I think the more we do it,
we're way ahead of.
the better. Speaking of which, if we're done with that particular agenda item, just to touch base on Larry's article. Larry, you submitted that to, if I understand correctly, to,
4 times.
I did. This is probably not timely anyway now, because I was going to pass this out last month for everybody just to look over. I did get some
are these copies for everybody?
copies, yeah.
Can I have the one with the coffee stain on it?
They all have copies. I'm discriminating not on anybody. This was my use unusable paper mission.
Good conservation.
Yeah, sure.
Good conservation method.
Absolutely.
Did you get 2 pages?
Yes, I got
But
Okay,
it.
I had sent out an email copy of the article. I had
that's the
gotten
one.
some very useful edits from editorial comments, so I think this was, but the deadline for submitting to Newport Times was, I think, probably a couple days ago. So it did go in with
Excellent.
pictures. It should, I've been assured that there'll be an article from Conservation Commission in the March-April edition.
Very good. So is this it, Larry, or is this something else yours?
No, that's a copy of the article.
That's a copy, okay.
And it should pretty much word for word be the article that will be in the
Excellent.
Newport Times.
So
Pictures.
these kind of communications are important to furthering our cause.
Yep, yeah, exactly.
And thank you so much, Larry, for doing
You're
that.
welcome.
Yeah,
The
really.
more of these we can do, the better.
Not exactly on our agenda,
It's gonna
that
be
may
in
be
the-
better for future, but I did put in at the end, and it doesn't show up here, that among things coming up that we're expecting, second page, participating in townwide activities. We hope to be involved in the townwide cleanup day. I edited that to actually include the day and date of the cleanup, but that brings me to the point, and we maybe want to discuss it next month. We did try to take a role in participating in that last year. Is that something we'd like to be doing again this year?
Yeah, actually, that's on my list to discuss. Didn't make the agenda, but I also submitted, I think we're duplicating effort a little bit, but not necessarily in a bad, or it's not necessarily a bad thing. I submitted an article to the Newport Times specifically to advertise that day.
Okay.
So I was in touch with PJ. He picked April 30th as the date, and I submitted an article to the Newport Times along with an updated version of their poster that they put out for her to include, and I sent her out.
Yeah, I think Gunther and I at
Yeah.
least got a copy.
Is that the updated one? Perfect.
Yeah.
So that's been included. Hopefully she'll put that next to my little article. And I also sent some pictures from last year,
Excellent.
because PJ had some pictures on Facebook.
Yeah.
So I just sent them. Hopefully she'll put a nice little half a page thing together.
Very good.
So, yes, all of these things are important to our
Yeah.
putting our best foot forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, thanks so much for doing that, Larry. It's excellent. Next agenda item, if we're moving on, would be the wetlands and the elderly housing development. So, this only came up, Christina, because I believe it was at the December meeting. Was that the one that
Yeah.
I missed that
you
one.
were not available?
Yeah. I gave you, only you, Don, did I give the department review paperwork for that one? It should have been in your pile.
You emailed me a copy of an email you sent to the, I guess it was to the developer?
probably, but hold on. I had, so this is your department review
Oh, okay.
for, is this one for the elderly housing? Yes, this one's for the elderly housing, and this is a department review for, actually, this one's probably gonna freak you out more, which we need, this is Rhonda Cola putting in a large, apartment complex on Central Street.
Central.
Yes, not Cross, another
Central.
one on Central. So both of these are what, these are what you're this is supposed to do, these two things.
Where on Central?
I can.
What the hell's
it's all-
happening to us?
It's in here, it's all, you
Central
can,
Street, and that's downhill, isn't it? Go
Downhill.
The other side's all built.
hold on, it's right here, hold on.
What is going on?
This is Cross, this is the Central Street one. So,
How many units is the Central Street one?
25, it's all in there.
And what is
Our
that?
roads are gonna
Is
be,
that elderly or is that work? quote?
Market rate housing, so first, top price. It's a nice, so I came up with something the other day.
It's right off the parking lot,
That's-
basically, now.
Yeah, it's the dead spot.
Oh, never even knew there was one. It was
It's,
just
it's
downhill into the river.
it's abutting the river. So
Oh,
one,
yeah,
abutting the river,
well,
falling into the
the
river.
property, yeah.
Well.
So
Okay.
the issue with it, and I don't know how to solve this, I've got to figure this out, I might ask legal, is I'm supposed to get your opinion, and I send these out to every department, but they're supposed to present in front of you. In theory, prior to planning board, because planning board always says, where is conservation's input? The problem is legally,
At least they got land there.
when I get paperwork
Even
from
that doesn't look very buildable.
a applicant,
That's,
I have to
that does look
legally
built.
put it on the
That is
next
built.
planning board meeting.
Christina's talking.
Just what, this is why I always miss you guys. I have to legally put on the next planning board meeting. Legally. You guys are always held after the next planning board meeting. So I never get you first. Do you see, because I was always like, why am I and the only way I'm getting you first is if the planning board, because legally, if they get it in on time, I have to put it on the agenda. And then you, no matter, I just figured this out the other day, because I'm like, why are we running into this problem every time? So I can easily give you these, and you guys do reviews like every other department, behind the scenes, but they are supposed to also present. I still think we either move your meeting, which that seems a little, right now, a little maybe much, but to get it in front of planning board, or we ask them to present afterwards, and I request that planning board puts in a condition that they will review conservation after the fact. But that's why we're not getting them in. To you, I never have your meeting until after they see, and I can't hold it. I can't hold their paperwork. So do you see, so I was gonna ask how other towns do that, or does the CC fall in front? Because you're supposed to see the airport one, and you're sure the heck's supposed to see Rhonda Colas.
Well, the planning board doesn't have to give their approval, or
Right,
you don't have to give permits until
Really?
we've been consulted.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's absolutely true.
that's,
It's absolutely true, and I can write that,
Just hold them up.
they could see it and present, and then say, we will give our approval at next month's meeting, depending upon what CC says.
input from CC, right?
Absolutely, and they do ask.
I mean,
so-
we need to have the opportunity to speak.
I agree, and to
And-
present.
And I don't see why we have to change our meeting date.
No.
I mean,
Well, and
because
did you,
well, I mean, is that a thing? I mean, should we
Yeah.
be meeting the second?
well, all I'm saying is the planning board, if they balk at me.
Why say no? If
You're-
we're meeting once a month, does it matter whether we meet the second or the third week in the
We grab
month?
this for a second.
It would make it a lot easier for me, because the minute I get their application, they would always, I'd know about it, and I'd stick them on the agenda. But one thing, what was I gonna say? Wait, really quick, I was just gonna say, oh, did you hear what Kevin said? That I'm supposed to be requesting a wetlands delineation report from every large,
But that's supposed
Anybody.
to do it.
and I'm not, and we don't have it on our planning, we're not having it on as a checklist, and I didn't know that. And I've never asked for one in any of these large constructions, and no one's
Should be on
produced
any.
one.
I think he said any
of them,
of them. Should be.
Any, so you're saying private property, I should do it
Yeah.
too?
any,
Does
he said, that's what he
How else are we
said.
gonna know if it's,
Anything's private
if it's
property.
infringing on a wetland,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, so I found out today, and I know we're in limited time, because I was speaking to DES, and I have her information, I have it right here. Rosemary, AURES, yeah, she gave me her private number. She stated that New Hampshire is a programmatic state, which means that if someone comes into permit for me, basically what you're saying, if they permit for a new structure, if they have not given me, that regardless of who they are, because I even mentioned, say I know nothing about anything and I buy a piece of land in Newport and I'm putting a manufactured home on it, and I need my driveway and there's a bunch of cattails, and and no one has said anything to me, and it's not on any of their reports, and I just drive over it and fill it in, I go, is that a violation? She goes, absolutely. I go, even if you don't have them on yours? She said, yes.
Because they're supposed to get a wetlands.
Right, and this was all, I thought I had to follow the ones they had delineated. Do you know that 628 that you two went? If you viewed cattails, we could have, that report was valid. That's why he got in trouble, because New Hampshire didn't have any knowledge of it on there.
You know, it's so small and it's compromised, I always think about picking my battles.
But did you see that? Have you seen the violations he's in for?
Oh, sure, you gave us a copy of it from the
Yeah,
state.
they're
They haven't done anything.
because
My
there's,
understanding, though, those were river,
That was the Shoreland Protection Act.
that are those violations.
and
are
there was
wetlands.
wetlands in there too.
It wasn't based solely on the fact that there's a wetland there. It's a wetland within the Shoreland Protection Act, if I
Yeah.
understood him correctly. Is that the way you understand it, Larry?
Well, I think that's what really tipped it,
Yeah.
is
So-
because it was on, involved shoreline.
Yeah.
So if I don't get this certified wetlands delineation report, I can hold up permitting,
Yep.
or we can ask to go on, which I thought if private property, that's why he said, right, that, or they don't get permitting, they don't go get site plan review, they don't get anything,
They don't get anything.
which.
And it's just like that. If
I've not
you
been doing this,
wanna-
so you guys hold a lot of control over this.
Yeah, well, how else are we gonna know that there's any kind of infringement
No,
upon?
so I'm gonna have to
There's
start.
simply no way to do it.
I'm gonna have to start mandating this on anything, or I'm gonna say, I'd like, prior to this being built, you either get this, or CC and I and another inspector come on and we walk your property. Oh, and you guys have already been trained on it, but I asked for what the 3 things are to make a wetland. And so we could go take pictures, if we see anything, I can hold up permitting, I then could call in the state, they would come out and look at it.
There's a lot to it, and none of us are experts, but
Right,
I think there's enough expertise here to have, I mean, you could go and see what's obvious and what isn't obvious.
but I didn't know what we had that authority. We thought unless we were invited on to look at a wetland, we had to turn our blind
No.
eye to it, and it's not the case.
Right, you're gonna get a lot of pushback though from somebody who has a 1 acre lot and they wanna build a house, to ask them to get a formal, from a wetland
So why do
scientist.
you think we need an NRI? Because
Well,
then
that
I have
would
to
help.
find out if it
Sell it.
slopes or hills or
Then you wouldn't-
severely dry,
then
you would
wouldn't sell
know.
it as a building
But since
lot.
I don't have that, I should go look at it first. What was it?
Yes, we should look at it.
So do you see why you need, yes, and
Yeah.
she even explained to me, like, where there probably isn't gonna be wetlands, like if it is very hilly or so, she goes, the pooling of any spring water on a slope would be very difficult to do. So anyways,
But you
this I
could-
just found
You
interesting.
could hold up the process by bringing it to us to our next meeting.
Absolutely.
You don't have to
Yeah, I think
You know,
we're
it's just
getting,
part of the process, they
Okay.
have to wait.
Yeah.
I just have felt bad that for some reason, we're always behind the eight ball and you're kind of seen after planning board. But, so we could talk in the future, it doesn't have to be anything, and I give these out to all departments, so this is you. And we do have projects you need to review, and those are two large ones.
yeah, I'm not sure what the best mechanism is for doing that. Whether all of us should be getting copies of this?
I can do that, I just brought those for today, I was gonna put them in your mailbox. I also can request both these people to come to your next meeting.
Okay.
And then I could tell planning board they're at the next meeting, because I think they're both gonna be on the planning board agenda, because they both got deferred.
Yeah, you should do that, and then we could pass around one.
Yeah, I don't need
Oh,
a
I can
packet
make
of those.
copies of.
I don't want the paper.
Yeah, you don't want the
know?
paperwork.
The thing is, as with like the development on Route 10, the whole thing that precipitated this
Yeah.
conversation, the wetlands are at a very kind of a remote end of that property. If they're not infringing on those wetlands, there's no issue with us.
No,
So what, if we knew that there was a wetland there and we saw a design that showed the location of their, whatever they're gonna do, that would certainly be a good preliminary review.
but you know what? So you know what, though? I have not asked them for a wetland delineation report, and guess what I'm gonna do? Because I'm thinking I'm gonna go walk that property. Because what if they're not, we believe it's only that one section, but there's so much
There is some more in the
missed.
back from what I could see.
So right there we
Yeah.
go.
So are you gonna require them?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
good.
didn't even know I had that right. And then he goes, and I'm even thinking, planning board should be walking the properties
You
down.
got power.
I know,
You
no, I
got
don't. I
power.
just couldn't, I thought on private property, I had to turn a blind eye if it wasn't already registered. Did we talk about that, or would I? Well, this is news to me, and no one's ever offered it, and planning board has never required it.
Okay, well,
So it's
we're-
going on the list, just so you guys know.
That's good.
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 It's going on the requirement of the checklist, and I am gonna require it, and I might require that, maybe we void it, say, no, I don't think anyone needs to walk it, but we have time, someone walks it, or I walk it.
Right. So if we can get their approval in writing, that we can go on the property and walk it.
Obviously, we need approval on private property, but if they don't give us approval, they don't go to planning board, they don't go to zoning board, they don't go to, yeah, so it's,
Right.
if they want a project, right, absolutely, of course.
So we got 15 minutes till our deadline. So
Hurry up.
Sorry, I didn't
so
mean
let's-
to get into that.
Let's move on to the Corbin Road Tree Fund if we can.
Very quickly, I talked with Todd Cartier, who said that that's Corbin Road is state. He, like Kenny, has communicated with them, and the state has no interest in,
Trimming, cutting,
yeah.
pruning, anything.
And naturally, they're constrained, that manpower is down, that,
Yeah, they can't even plow.
you know, funds being what they are, if they had priorities, you know, Corbin Road would be in a priority, but there's a lot of roads that need work. There is a tree fund that's about $1,100. I did talk with Larry Cody from Historical Society, because there was apparently a letter that accompanied the original institution of the fund. He said it was very general. He couldn't find it at that point, but having read it, and I corroborated this with Paul Brown, who had once seen the letter and had a copy somewhere, but he couldn't find it. When we talked, it was very general, and the fund was established for upkeep of trees on the Corbin Road.
When, where, who, you don't,
Edgels, the Edgel
Edgels.
family
really?
was part of it.
So is this money collecting any interest?
Might be, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
It hasn't been reported. It was in a town report going back to the
It was
1990s. or
Thrown in
so.
that pool fund, I bet.
But, you know, that would probably get us an arborist to take on one limb of one tree.
You got it.
You know, one option, or somebody said, well, maybe those monies would be better used to look at plantings along the road. But no work will be done on Corbin Road, and pass at your own risk on a windy day or a heavy, wet snow day.
Our limbs, is it the issue is it's dangerous with limbs falling
Oh, God,
across? Those trees are gorgeous.
Yeah, they're
That
probably
line the tree, it's a
80,
little
Not really
white.
gorgeous
Tall.
now, there's half of the old white pines just need to come down.
They
Well,
do.
one of them is completely dead. that I've
Yeah,
seen.
there's several
I mean, it's-
standing dead trees.
Yeah.
It used to be iconic part, people coming to town, but that was 30-plus years ago. The trees are well past their, lifespan.
If there had been,
Can the,
if there had been some maintenance done to them, it would have been
pretty,
different.
yeah.
Yeah,
And is there somebody that administers that fund other than Paul? I mean,
it's like most funds, Paul.
any maybe plantings are something that we want to do, or promote anyway.
Or do something, yeah. But there is money there, Corbin Road Tree Fund.
Not sure what to do with it at this point. Any suggestions, any further discussion?
From the pines now?
Yeah, not really good for
Okay.
lumber trees.
Are we ready to move on to the next item?
I am.
Larry, you report on that?
Which was?
NHACC wetland course?
Oh, okay, yeah. I attended a Zoom course, session 1 of the provided by the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions. That was January 27th. It was an excellent introductory session, an hour and a half of Zoom. The presenters were from Antioch College, Dr. Rick Van Pelt, I guess, and he's also runs an ecological management company. But the first session was really quite helpful in just the basics on delineation, or what defines a wetland. The 3 basic properties are: it's got to have the soil, it's got to have the vegetation type, and it's got to be wet, I guess, is the third. But they talked about the 5 basic wetland types: riverine, lacustrine, which is more like ponds, and then bogs. So anyway, it was very helpful in understanding what wetlands are. Session 2 is going to be next Friday, a week from this Friday, 2/24, and they're going to get into the actual what is legally classified as a wetland at the state, local, and federal levels. Session 3, which will be done in March, we'll talk about the GIS mapping tool. And then in the springtime, there's going to be a couple courses. One is actually going to be a classroom on assessing wetlands, and then there's going to be an actual field session. Participants will be brought out to the field so we can actually touch the soil and look at the plants. So
Are you planning on attending those other?
I'm going to try to attend as many as I can. I'm already pre-registered for next Friday.
Yeah. Yeah, I registered too. I don't know if I'll be able to make next Friday, but I wasn't able to make the last one. Yeah.
They're lunchtime Zoom sessions, so the time was picked mostly to get people on their, lunch hour, lunch hour and a half, so very good.
The more
So
education
fun.
we can get, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, well, thank you for reporting on that.
And,
And for attending.
apropos of what we were just talking about, these new projects, the session 2 may very well be helpful in learning about what the actual jurisdiction is from the state, local, and federal levels. What we have, or the town has, in its power to grant or deny permits, or to, bump permits up to the state for,
Development.
mitigation review.
Mhm.
So,
Well, thanks for attending.
yeah,
It's good. The more knowledge we get, the better off we are.
yeah.
We have 7 minutes remaining. So I was going to just bring up a couple things, if nobody minds my
Go for it.
interjecting. I had the idea of possibly the Conservation Commission leading guided hike up to the Pinnacle, or some other natural feature in Newport. Again, this is kind of on the same line, or along the same lines as public outreach.
Introducing
Yeah.
ourselves.
And I think Larry and I kind of talked about this quickly when we were doing some cleanup at the Pinnacle, leading a tour. So I was thinking the best place to advertise that might be in the Newport Times. I don't know if anybody else would have any suggestions on that.
Well, obviously it'd go on your homepage and on the town homepage. They would put it on the planning board, or Conservation Commission, and then I could also ask Joanne to highlight it.
That'd be great. Good. Yeah.
What, did you have a date for that?
No, I mean, I'm just introducing the idea right now, and I think summertime, maybe July, August would be best. I don't know. Maybe September, I'm not sure. Sometime when it's not terribly buggy.
No bug season.
But the Newport Times comes out every odd month. So January, March, May. To me, it would make sense for it to go into the May issue, June issue.
So then you get July, August.
So just write a little blurb about advertising it. I don't think it has to be lengthy. I just wanted to get get a consensus amongst the commissioners,
Good idea.
how they view that.
But you kind of sense that might be those who were involved in guiding would want to talk to the participants about.
You have a town forest perhaps,
Yeah.
or something kind of make it a little educational as well.
The history of the forest and.
Yeah, which could be that could be the subject of another article, would be the conservation properties. Larry, you touched on in your last article on our walking the property boundaries, but focusing on the history of the town, why it's conservation land, and
As I say, most people don't even know we have.
exactly,
Conservation land.
exactly. Actually thinking about the four properties. So, got to give it more thought, but if there's consensus amongst the commissioners, we'll talk about possibly putting an article in May.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Okay. And then doing something in July, something like that, August. Another thing I wanted to bring up, because Kenny had brought it up and was noted in our last minutes, on again, I think it's on page 5, under Yeoman's property. Was it under that one? Kenny, you mentioned when we went out and walked the Barton property,
Yes,
there were 4 of us.
yes.
So we had a quorum.
Oh,
And you mentioned that, and it got put in the minutes. So I think it's under that. No, I'm sorry. Article for Newport Times. Last sentence, Mr. Dennis said that if a quorum was at the walkabout, there needed to be minutes. I'm trying to figure out how we address that.
Actually, there needs to be more than that, there needs to be public notice.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I can look into it, I don't think I'd worry too much about it, but
well, there were no decisions made, and it
And there
wasn't
was-
it wasn't for the,
Just-
I think maybe that could be like if you're on, I would think that if people wanted to do like the boundary lines and stuff and you happen to have more than 4, I think that's a function of the board, and it doesn't have to be, like, you're not allowed to be near each other. I can look into it, but I would find, because it's already passed, we didn't public
Right.
notice. We
I've
obviously.
always
could-
been cautioned by Paul Brown about any
Gatherings.
gathering
speak.
of any of planning, zoning, board of selectmen, anybody. If they have a quorum and it's on official duty,
Oh, we should
that
post
minutes-
it if all four are gonna go.
that minute should be, and it needs to be
Let me-
posted afterwards of the,
So we can't go back and repost it?
You
but-
can't, so
How-
there's
so-
been a violation, and there would be no, us especially being proactive and aware, and then there's that, it's some legal term that if a mistake is done knowingly, that's a higher offense than if you did it and then you're like, oh crap, I think we just made a mistake unknowingly. That's not, I forget what it is.
Well, the thing is, we didn't even know who was gonna show up.
Right, so we
we
should
didn't-
be,
So we didn't even know we were gonna have a quorum until
so
we
you have
got
to
there.
turn
well, that's what I
someone
mean,
down.
it doesn't, yeah. So you either send somebody away or,
Yeah,
Right,
now, my point to that is, I think what I've always understood was, we don't know who's coming, and it ends up to be a quorum, and we're talking about, so somehow jot down some notes. Because that quorum existed at that meeting, then we could do a public
that it happened,
notice
that's true.
that right off, the conservation had a meeting
mhm,
of Conservation Commission members.
mhm.
And then, that's covered if somebody saw that and said, well, what'd you talk about? Well, then we have some,
That's
we
true.
have some minutes.
If that
Back
happened,
up.
yeah, by accident.
It's just a
So how do we accomplish that at our subsequent monthly meeting?
Well, could,
We-
if anyone could draft up what the conversations were, because you could do minutes outside the meeting. If you could draft it up, or we could draft them up here during the next meeting.
We do have the report from Charlotte Harding, which lists the attendees and what we did.
And then we give that to Maura,
And-
right? We give that to Maura and she,
You can just
Wasn't that-
be,
no?
you can just be included. There was
And it would
one
just be
other case
included in
where John said that there was a quorum for a case you had gone out, and
So
he
then it
said now
just-
or was it you, Ken? For the minutes, I would like you to add this. These are the people who came, this is what
To the
was
following-
discussed,
at
there
the
were no
following meeting.
decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like we gotta run right back and
Yeah.
jot down the, we,
And then it's in the monthly meeting minutes.
So do we feel that we need to go back and do that for that meeting,
no, we need to be more due diligent about
for the future?
watching what we do in the
Okay.
future.
Okay,
Yeah,
Because we had no discussion about conservation. It was basically a state requirement that we were adhering to
Mhm.
when we met with Charlotte Harding
Mhm.
and marking the properties properly as
Which you do outside of public meetings, right?
that,
Yeah, right, of
that's,
course.
typically, yeah.
again, I certainly, I hope you weren't, I was just trying to make
I'm not
that aware.
offended,
of
no.
what-
It was,
I just
No,
want, I
but
want to
it
cover
was, it
ourselves.
goes, yes,
Yeah.
but it goes back to when we met at the boardwalk, and I brought it up there. It's just,
Yeah.
and we were discussing,
Future-
and
future
it's
reference.
not
Right.
here, so I should have been the one that just jotted down some notes and then whipped off an email to Maura so that it got into our next minutes. And that's all it is, it's cover your,
Right, okay.
in case.
CYA.
So for the future,
I don't spell well.
we have to be diligent.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, could I add one more thing? And we don't have to discuss any of it, but I want to get it in. It should have been on the agenda. Basically, Larry and Gunther came across this when Larry was looking through monies. And in 2007, the Newport Conservation Commission had a savings account that had $14,283.56. And someone, I don't know who that is, and if what you said earlier in the meeting is true, they illegally transferred our money into the pool account, which is a slush fund held by the town. And they did it twice, and they closed out. And that pool account, I think presently,
has a couple,
I believe the name on the checks was Jonathan Howard, because I
okay,
think he
So
was
that's
involved with the
Jack
town.
Howard was the treasurer at the time.
Oh, okay.
and they put
Of
it
the Conservation
into,
Commission.
No, of the whole town.
and so he took conservation money and he put it into a slush fund for the town in 2007.
Into the general fund.
And took $14,283 away from conservation. That is
But that-
literally yours.
But that might have been
That
for
might-
the cut.
That was probably the money for the cut.
No, it closed out an account.
Yeah, but
It
that-
literally closed out your savings account. So you believe that, and they did it in 2 stages, so you believe that the exact amount in your savings account was exactly for a cut? Seems kind of,
I have no idea.
I don't know.
it
Yeah.
seems like.
How did you find that?
I think we
You
have.
guys did? You,
Well, it was a
Yes, I
sheer-
think money,
Super sleuth.
yeah, and I think
Really?
money is getting siphoned. This is what happens. They're like, oh, let's close this out, and they threw it into a
Huh.
slush fund.
Jack Howard wouldn't do that.
There's a file cabinet
wow.
in Christina's office for
Yeah. It was your money.
drawers and file cabinet, and so I just thought
He went,
I'd start familiarizing myself with
Yeah.
the old papers. A lot of it is folders on projects, like one of them goes back to the 80s when they did work up around the water tanks, for instance,
Yeah.
other projects and things. But the ground level drawer is all financial stuff. It was bank statements, canceled checks that went back to the 1970s. So
Wow.
we started organizing those a little bit and discovered that
this was just a
you can't
closeout.
really
This was just a closeout of a savings account.
trail the money, couldn't trail it.
Well, it's kind of like the Corbin Tree Fund. Paul goes, well, I don't know anything about that. It just gets all put into this and no one then follows up. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, so I would, obviously we need more investigation. We don't talk anymore, we're past.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It shouldn't be
I
talked
do
about
believe there's,
that.
go
The
ahead.
monies were accounted for, though, in the annual town reports, as far as accounting.
The pool in its entirety.
No, the actual Conservation Commission funding.
Say that
I've been
again?
tracking,
Oh.
I've been tracking the funding
Oh.
since the 70s and 80s, so it's kept track of, but it did go into a pooled account. But it was still credited to the
The
Conservation
pool
Commission.
account being the
annually.
general
That's
fund.
what I'm saying.
Sort of, yeah.
So
So
did
it could've
last
went
year,
into-
so why aren't we notified of this then, that we have 14,000, or that
Well,
you?
that,
You see?
but
That-
And it just happened to be a coincidence that I'm a deputy
You
treasurer.
see, it's,
And I
no
was
one's
able to
paying
go to the
attention.
bank and
Yeah.
get the paperwork.
I don't
Oh, wow.
think- I don't think it's nefarious. I just think no one's
No.
paying attention. We would never know if,
But the conservation, maybe it's in the conservation funds, though. Was it ever transferred from the
No, it
pool?
looks like it shows in the conservation
Yeah.
funds. I mean, I don't want to go.
oh,
from
you
nine
think
o'clock.
it got
It's still-
transferred out of the pool
Well, it's
into the
pool, but it's still in the Conservation Commission.
funds?
I think it-
But it's still in
It's
the
in the
pool.
reporting.
It's still in the pool. It's not in your treasury
I think-
report.
I think
This is a
so.
found
Well, it is-
14,000.
No,
It is in
no,
the treasury.
it is in the,
It's
Oh,
in the treasury. There's something in there every month,
yeah.
and I've been
oh.
tracking it, and but it's not like it's.
Okay, well, this was, I just wanted to bring, okay, I wanted to bring this up because I knew, so I didn't know
sure.
you were still trying, okay,
I mean, this-
perfect.
This could have been a Sugar River account that was closed out to go into Lake Sunapee account.
That's, I think, exactly what happened, yes.
This is Jack Howard. I'm not going
Okay.
anywhere near this about Jack Howard.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with these
I'm gonna
Well-
ask,
mysteries,
I'm
but
gonna
other than,
ask Paul about it, but.
Oh, well, no, I don't think it was nefarious. I just think people took, like, wanted, I could use that back unless I can make copies for everyone.
I'd like a copy of it.
Absolutely. I just don't think, I
I've
don't
got the
think it
original.
was nefarious. I just think we're not keeping track of the
no,
money.
but
Yeah, well-
he's saying that it is
It
being
is
kept track
possibly,
of.
yes, I did not know that. I did
We
not,
don't care, we don't care where the money is, do we, as long as it says,
it's ours, yes, you're
Okay.
absolutely right.
Okay.
I think the takeaway in my mind is that we need to be on top of
You're
our
right,
finances.
You're right.
exactly.
And there's not much we can do, I don't think, about what's happened in the past.
You're right, if they're marking it in the treasury report, I was not aware of that. We just, last I talked, I thought it was found, so I'm kind of upset. And I didn't think it was, no one had spent it.
No.
I just
No,
wanted to add one last thing just for the information of the commissioners. So, this is for the edification of all the commissioners. I don't know if anybody's aware of these, but we get tax bills. You guys know, probably.
I didn't know that.
We do. We own 3 properties.
Oh,
Down on, is that Chandler's Mills?
Channel Mills Road, it's a little island off,
It's,
in the river.
Oh, no,
Pretty
that's
neat.
fine.
yeah, well, there's 3 properties
Might not be
there, and we own them.
Yeah.
And these are part of the parcels that are included in that ordinance that we discussed previously. That there are parcels of land around town that are protected in this ordinance, but we actually own these properties. The tax bills are for nothing because we're exempt. Just so, we don't pay anything.
yeah.
I just wanted to make people aware of that. Just so you know what's going on. We own those properties.
No, okay.
I'd like to get that deal for my home.
I know, huh? How can you?
I don't pay
Well, donate it to the country.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, right.
Then we'll get our NRI, I guarantee
That's
it.
right.
We'll get the Taj Mahal of NRI.
If I remember right, Jack Howard bought 3 properties for $14,000.
Is that right?
So I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need to, second. All in favor? Aye. All right.
Second.
Sorry I jumped the gun. I didn't realize God was doing more work. I was actually hopeful.
Sorry to be
I was-
offset, but
Oh, no, I'm
Jack
not.
Howard